Hi, this is chapter 17, The Body Has a Mind of Its Own, of Why Is This Happening to Me Again, with Michael Rice. And all these sessions are recorded and shared publicly to support others in these teachings. And I'm Yinka and I run Hear My Voice Book Club, which is an inspirational self-development books, and all the events can be found on Meetup. What we've got left for this week is just children's meditation with Shoshana tomorrow at 7. And Michael will be back with us in 2 weeks' time. I'm not sure what date that is actually. 25th.
Yay.
The next Thursday we've got our Jodie Spencer's Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself. Our May online monthly book club is Build the Life You Want by Arthur Brooks and Oprah Winfrey on the 2nd of May. And our in-person event is The Power of Your Subconscious Mind on the 9th of May at 10 AM in Waterstone, Steensgate. We had our session today, which was really good. We have WhatsApp groups keeping people connected. And Hear My Voice Book Club runs non-profit events, so everyone can take part regardless of financial status. Any donations will go into supporting Michael Rice and his teachings. So if anyone feels inspired to or would like to support Michael at the end of the session, you can do that through clicking the link or going on his website, and you can donate through there. And Michael is the founder and director of Heartland and Self-Healing Centre. Michael lectures and teacher on health and healing and true meaning of true forgiveness. Michael is married to Jeannie Rice, who's also in the process of writing her own book of healing generations, one breath at a time. So hopefully that will come soon to the book club as well.
Maybe that'll be the next book we cover.
Yes, that would be good. Has she got a date for publishing?
No, it's still in edit mode, so I don't know what kind of time frame is involved. We'll just have to see how it unfolds.
I've got quite a few chapters left for this book. Is it 20? I can't remember how many chapters altogether.
24 chapters in this book.
24, yeah.
And we're on what, 17?
17.
Hey.
So maybe by the time we finish this one,
maybe it'll be ready. Well, even if it's not published, it'll probably be ready to work with. So we'll see if we can talk her into that.
Yeah. So throughout this session, remembering holding your breath is exactly how you acquire a past about something and carry it with you. Holding your breath attaches the pain of an experience to a reality in the mind. So remember to breathe. If any triggers show up, remember to breathe. So in our previous chapter, Richard, oh, sorry, 1 second. My laptop just went off then. I was about to read it. So Richard, a successful man in his late 30s following the breakup of another marriage, had contacted Michael. Richard felt like his life was a mess and was desperate and wanted Michael's help. In the previous chapter 16, abuse and victimhood, Richard realized he was comfortable in the role of a victim that he had practiced all his life. Richard shared he had caused the trauma that was his constant companion. He looked at where playing the victim had been benefiting. We looked at where playing the victim benefited our own life, and Michael shared how we could free ourselves from the drug hostility and fear and face ourselves and the cause of playing the victim. So that was our previous chapter. So Richard and Michael returned from a walk. Their focus of discussion had turned to resonance and the mind. Michael had explained that the law of resonance is a law of governs all energy fields and is the law of energy exchange. What is resonance? Richard asked. So the question to you is, what do you know about the law of resonance?
Pretty important piece of information to have, since resonance is the base principle that runs the world. You'll be familiar perhaps with the law of resonance from physics class in high school, where you took a middle C tuning fork and you hit it on a desk and you put it in front of a second middle C tuning fork that wasn't moving, and all of a sudden when the moving tuning fork came close to the second one started to move. Sympathetic resonance. Two energy fields literally that are in tune or in harmony with each other create an exchange of energy. And that's the principle I would offer that runs physiology, runs the mind, at least the mind of the body, and literally runs the world. So what we're looking to do is to understand how that principle impacts the way we function and go for changes if it's appropriate.
Is that meant the law of attraction, the law of resonance?
Law of attraction would be something different.
I have got a
Okay.
video of the law of resonance as well. That's only a few minutes long, because I didn't do physics at school either. So even though I've heard you say it many times, watching the video really opened me up to be able to see it.
Can we put that up on the screen now?
Yeah.
Great, let's go for it.
Just read this one and then we'll go. It's just repeating
Okay.
what you've just said. So imagine holding up a middle C tuning fork and bring a second vibrating middle C fork near it. What will happen is the first fork will vibrate. I remember the experiment physics class in high school. Richard answered, what if I introduce vibrating fork tuned to F? Nothing happens. Richard chimed in. The two forks are vibrating at different frequencies before are not in tune with each other. The first fork will register nothing. So we have got a clip of that. So I'm just going to mute so there's no background sound. So Michael, you are our co-host, so you can unmute at any time.
Oh.
Tuning forks are wonderful tools for teaching physics. Every physics classroom should have several, and every physics student should be taught how to use them. In this video, I'll be showing you the top 10 demonstrations that you can do while using a tuning fork. When using a tuning fork, hold it by the base and strike the end of the tines with a rubber mallet. If a mallet is unavailable, strike it against something moderately soft like a bent knee or a mouse pad or the edge of a table. Once it's vibrating, touch the lower part of the tines near the joint to dampen out the unwanted higher harmonics. Hold the tines near your ear or the base of a large flat surface such as a tabletop or a whiteboard. Try dipping the tuning fork in water. All sounds come from vibrations. This experiment looks great in slow motion. Try putting the tuning fork in front of a CRT computer monitor for an interesting wiggly effect.
What the?
An adjustable strobe light can give the illusion of slow motion. Is this tuning fork even moving? Whoa, I guess it was. Clip a simple speaker removed from its housing to an oscilloscope and demonstrate the pure tone of the tuning fork. You can also verify its frequency. One of the most famous demonstrations is that of resonance. I have these two tuning forks which are on the same frequency, 256. If I sound one of them, the sound gets transported to the other through resonance. And back again. Here's a way you can enhance the
Hold for
demonstration.
just a second there.
I've hung a ping pong ball on a string and it's up against the edge.
Yeah, just to be a little more accurate there. When he says When I hit this one, it transfers the sound to the second one. Not accurate. What happens is when he hits the first tuning fork, it sets up a frequency, and the frequency causes the second tuning fork to vibrate, and this second tuning fork creates a sound. And that's a really important, like in terms of this work, really urgent distinction, because you and I were all raised to be very devout card-carrying members of the one world universal religion of blame. And when I say that this tuning fork transfers its sound to the second tuning fork, that's the blame game. Oh, see, the reason sound's coming from this tuning fork is because it came from the first one. No, what came from the first one was an energetic pattern, a frequency. It was the motion in the second tuning fork that created the sound. And that would be comparable to somebody shows up in my life and gives me the look. And when they give me the look, it resonates something in me. Did that look make me feel something? No. But that look resonated what was in me, and what moved in me as a result of that sympathetic resonance is what created my feeling. It came from inside of me. So there's a really fine line there, really important distinction. I'm surprised sitting in a physics lab that he's not clear on that. But no, it isn't the sound transferring, just a frequency. What happens in the second tuning fork comes from the second tuning fork. And you and I function like tuning forks. So we go around in the world and people resonate things in us. And we've all been taught, you made me mad. If my mad's resonating, well, not me, I'm perfect. You made me mad, you made me sad, you made me afraid. No, you set up a frequency that resonated my tuning fork. And what was moving in me is what made me mad, sad, afraid, or what have you. And when you understand that, then you can take responsibility and move into accessing those energetic patterns that resonate in you that you really are ready to be finished with, that you don't want to play out of anymore. But as long as you think that it came from somewhere else, you'll never be able to change it. Does that make sense for everybody?
That helped, that did, yeah. Because I'm not very knowledgeable on physics.
Mm-hmm.
Do you want me to play the rest of it?
Go for it.
Edge of one of the tuning forks. Watch what happens. For this demonstration, I'm sending a beam of laser light all the way across the room. And it lands on this solar cell, which is connected to a speaker system. When I block the beam with my hand, you can hear it on the speakers. Now partially blocking the beam with a tuning fork, you can hear it on the speakers. These two tuning forks are not in agreement. This one has a little extra ballast which lowers the frequency slightly. When I sound them together, the sounds will interfere rhythmically, both constructively and destructively. That's called beats. You can see it on an oscilloscope.
Okay, let's put it on hold again. Another important principle here is when he uses the word constructive and destructive, people can transfer that to their own minds and to people around them. And
I'm sorry,
again,
Michael, I can hear a repeat in the background of your voice.
Okay.
Is that the other?
Is that better now? No, it's still
No, I
blank.
can still.
I've got a problem with my computer and I'm concerned it's going to
Oh, that's better.
lose battery.
Right.
That's better now?
Yeah. Oh no, still got
No.
the background sound.
Okay, let me turn this off. I have my phone on as well in case I needed to shift. Let me just, there. It's not off yet. Give me just a second here. Okay, that should do it. So when he says constructive and destructive, that constructive and destructive idea tends to put a twist on it that on an energetic level doesn't belong. And again, it can help people to play the game of blame. But when he says constructive, what he's really meaning, let me just grab a piece of paper. And let me just draw a couple of those lines like you saw on the oscilloscope.
I'll stop sharing so you can see.
Let's see if we can, oh, we lost, there we are.
There you go.
Trying to get this in front of my camera, get it to focus. Okay, that's not going to work very well, so let that go. Let me just explain it differently then. So when you saw on the oscilloscope that the, oh, here, I hold it back here and you can see it. I just have to find it on my page because the camera's backward. So you see that the wave form is going up and down. When you have two different waves, when he says constructive, he's talking about the two different waves coming together and their peaks would add, so it creates an additional amplitude or strength. It's like doubling the strength of it. So that would be what he means by constructive. Destructive would mean where they're out of phase. Out of phase meaning that if the wave here is going up and the one below is going down, they'll cancel each other. So that would be what he's referring to as destructive. So they're additive and subtractive with each other, as opposed to constructive, destructive. And I think that maybe helps to make it a little clearer. We'll go back.
One very common lab that uses tuning forks is measuring the speed of sound by resonance. Here, I've got a 288 Hertz D tuning fork. I strike the tuning fork and hold it, searching for the resonance.
You ever blow air into a pop bottle?
Then, by measuring the height at resonance, you can determine the wavelength of the sound. There are many interesting demonstrations and experiments to perform by gluing a mirror on the end of a tuning fork. If you shine a laser light on the mirror and then wiggle it around when it's struck, you'll notice that you get the sine curve. That's right, the tuning fork is vibrating in a sinusoidal pattern. Combining two tuning forks and pointing them at perpendicular angles, you can generate the original Lissajous figures. Don't forget that these are actually musical notes. Take tuning forks C, E, and G, and you can strike a chord. The chord is C major. One of the last things you're going to want to do with your tuning fork is tune a musical instrument. You got to be careful because the scientific tuning forks do not match the musical scale. The way it's usually done is you take a tuning fork and resonate it on the body of the instrument and see if it matches the note that you're playing. Well, I hope you learned everything you wanted to know about tuning forks. See the article for more details, and I'll see you next time.
Good video, right? Another example that a lot of people will relate to is we've all heard of the opera singer, that we have this fine wine glass and the opera singer sings and hits the right note, and through resonance the wine glass takes on the energy from the singer's voice, which is what the tuning fork, the second tuning fork, is taking on the energy from the primary, and the wine glass starts to vibrate, can't handle that much energy, and shatters. And you can have 10,000 wonderful opera voices that come in and they all sound great, but only the one that can hit the right note that matches or creates the transfer of energy with the glass can shatter the glass. And the corollary of that is you go through life and you interact with a million people, and there's this one person that just, we say rubs you the wrong way. We really should be saying resonates you the wrong way. And the beauty is that that person's the one that's giving you the gift to just show you what it is you need to deal with, what it is you need to work through. Does that make sense for everybody? Any questions about that?
All right, 1 second, let me go. Let me let you on mute. Corey.
Thank you for bringing that video in. That was good. I wish I had a
Go,
lab
Corey.
like that.
Yes. That's the first time I've seen it. I'd seen it when I first watched it. Because I've heard you speak about tuning forks, but we didn't do that. I didn't do physics.
You can also order tuning forks. There are people who do medical work and medical treatment using tuning forks with different parts of the body to bring the body into resonance with healthier frequencies and to support the body in throwing off energies that don't belong. There are also people who do things called a sound bath. If you've ever been to a meditation where they do a sound bath, and usually they'll have brass Tibetan bowls, or they'll have large glass, like, have you ever seen a big, huge glass bowl, and they run a wooden mallet with a rubber ring around it, and they run it around the edge until that bowl starts resonating at its frequency. And so there are people, musicians, that do sound baths, and they'll have, half a dozen different bowls going, and it can be a very healing space to be in. If you're just in that space and you breathe, it can move a lot of those internal energies.
I should look into that. I did watch some videos on them doing it on the body. Do you have a
Actually,
question?
we have some tuning forks here, and about a month ago, we were working with Ari Rain, and we were doing some energy work with her, and she turned to me and said, "Papa, it's your turn to lay down." So I laid down on the floor, and she was doing some hands-on work with me, and then she said, "Oh, wait a minute," and she went and got the tuning forks and started to use the tuning forks and touch them to my body. She did that totally on her own, like her intuition was saying, "Oh, here's another way to move energy." So it's pretty sweet.
Oh. Did Corey have a question?
No.
I seen you raise your hand.
Oh, sorry. No. It's all okay.
No. All right, okay. So if there is no resonance, there is no energy exchange. Only when two fields are in tune or in harmony with each other is there an exchange of energy between them. When they enter each other's sphere, the stronger field transfers some of its energy to the weaker field, which is strengthened. This is the same law that governs the functions of the mind, Michael added. What do you mean governs the mind, Richard quizzed.
You ever get into the space of somebody and you just can't help it? There's this discomfort that's moving. It's a result of resonance.
Would you recommend staying around that person if that's the case?
I would recommend that if there's discomfort moving in you, remember with the two tuning forks, the first tuning fork didn't transfer its sound to the second. It just put out a frequency that matched what was the second tuning fork was tuned to. So if you find somebody that can show you discomfort, they're a gift, because most of us are expert at hiding our discomfort from ourselves. And everything that creates discomfort is a physical disease. So if you want to hang out with your physical diseases, stay away from everybody that could ever resonate something you don't want to deal with. And those energetic patterns that are uncomfortable ultimately, literally, cancel the thought, but ultimately will kill you. So yeah, it can be beneficial. And or, sometimes we get around people that are literally physically dangerous. Thank you, I don't need to hang out with them. But if I get around someone that's physically dangerous and I go, this is not a wise place for me to be, but they are showing me something in my mind, in my body that I need to deal with, As I walk away from that space, I want to make sure that I continue to do the work to clean that up so I don't resonate somebody else into my space. I don't draw somebody else. That's where the law of attraction comes in. Law of attraction is basically the law of resonance. I pull people in. And my take is that the purpose of life, life is about life. And if you're holding on to something that's creating death, life says, I'm going to, through the law of resonance, send you somebody that will show you what there is in you that's about death. Now, when they do, you can go one of two directions. You can go, oh, you make me so mad. You make me so uncomfortable. I'm getting out of here. Or you can go, wow, every time I get around that person, something in me of discomfort resonates. Pardon me. I think I'll do some forgiveness work on that. I think I'll get rid of that resonance in me. And now I don't have to pull anybody else in to play that game with me anymore. And I don't have to suffer with the disease of that energy locked somewhere in my tissue structure. Remember, the mind functions through every cell in the body. And where you put energies into the so-called body, the energy field, that are off the mark, those energies that don't belong in the structure, they're called incoherent energies. They don't match, and they cause disintegration of the structure. And that's what we, in the human world, that's what we call disease, as though it's physical. There is no such thing as physical disease. Well, Michael, that's ridiculous. I know somebody who had the ABC, the DEF, and the XYZ disease. Of course there's physical disease. Well, let's listen to Einstein for a minute. And maybe the person who says that knows better than Einstein, but here's what he says. On such things as matter, we've been all wrong. What we have heretofore called matter is energy, energy whose vibrations have been so lowered as to be perceptible to the senses. There is no matter. We don't live in the material world. Our brain's perception painted on the inside of our eyeballs makes it look like a solid physical world. There's nothing solid and nothing physical about it. It's all energy. There are certain energies that support you being alive and vital, and there are energies that don't. If somebody can show you an energy with which you are devitalizing yourself, then take that as a cue to do your work and clean up your own energy field. And the clue here is, if I feel it, it's mine. You can't feel anybody else's.
That certainly got my brain working.
Go for it. Does that mean there's a question in there?
It's more of a trying to understand, because there's somebody in my life where when we come together, what we resonate is discomfort when we're in the presence of each other. Every time we come together, I mean, the person's not a bad person, just that when our energies come together.
Yeah, that's called meeting with someone who has a matching bag of garbage. And if you clean up the garbage that they resonate in you, then you can be around them and it'll just be, it's gone. There's nothing there to be resonated.
I've got on there, let's demonstrate, don't think about the colour of your front door. So we're going to demonstrate. Let's demonstrate. Don't think about the colour of your front door.
And so, and the reason for looking at an idea like that is that when I speak, and this applies in the realm where when you realize you're a creator, when I speak, I set up a frequency. And it's the frequency I set up that is key. And most people run through their whole lives setting up frequencies for exactly what they don't want. Oh, I don't ever have anybody will ever abuse me again. Oh, I don't want anybody to ever talk to me like that again. Oh, I don't want a child who disobeys all the time. Well, the body of the thought, if I say, don't think about the color of your car or the front door, you can't not think about it. It's resonance. The frequency in my voice sets up a field. The word not isn't heard by the mind. You know, so many times people interact with children and all of their instructions about what the child should not do. But when I say to until their minds get wired backward like ours, when I give the child instructions about what they should not do, don't touch that. And you'll notice after the kid touches it and then you give them hell for it, the confused look on their face, because you just told them to touch it. No, I told them not to touch it. The word not is not heard by the mind. Don't think about the color of your car. What moves in you? Don't touch that. To a child is the instruction to touch that. And then the child gets slapped and it's like, wait a minute, I just did what you told me to do. No, I told you not. No, the word not doesn't mean anything. The body of our languaging is what our creative process is based on. And if we're always in the creative process of, I don't want this and they better never abuse me again, and I'm not going near people who do that. As a creator, what did I just send out into the universe? Somebody come do it to me again. I've got to clean up my own mind.
Because you couldn't be, it couldn't be anything else. So that's all you could think about is the front door.
Well, I've had people, you know, I've been using this example for years. I've had people in workshops and they'll say, don't think about the color of your car. And they've been in my workshop before, so they knew. And they'll say, well, I wasn't thinking about it. Oh, really? What is it you weren't thinking about? You can't not think. And we say it's thinking, but in truth, it isn't even thinking. It's just resonating data in the mind. When energy moves in the mind through resonance, that has nothing to do with thinking, although most people call it thinking. The truth is, if most people said what they thought, they'd be speechless, because they do nothing but resonate with what's going on around them.
Yes, but not without first deciding not to think about the front door, which is thinking about your front door. With my words, I set up an energy field. My words resonated the file in your mind. So,
Great visual.
in the same way that tuning force resonated and interchanged energy or information, your mind was stimulated into thoughts about your front door. This action is not thinking at all, but simple resonance. It is a law that governs every process in the mind. Words are a frequency put out by human voice. Our words resonate all information of similar frequency in the mind that hears them. I call this the file folder effect. Let me lay out that idea. All information that relates to any particular topic is stored in a file. So to speak with like information, when you fire one set of brain cells to the file, it sets up the energy field that tends to cause every other brain cell in that file to fire. The file folder effect is not thinking, it is only information firing in the brain cells. It is information on cycling in the body's mind in response to input words, images, symbols, impulses, or sensations. Richard seemed intrigued with this concept and leaned towards Michael. Do you mean that anything that triggers brain cells can be catalyst to the file folder effect? He asked. So we've got some question in the comments of, so when I say I love you and not mean it, the vibration which the other person receives, and I'm not sure what that word's meant to be, and fees. Corey, do you want to unmute? and ask it. Just
Okay,
there you
yeah,
go.
that was not good written. That is when I say I love to somebody, I love you, and that is not really honest. It's just said, and the vibration is then that the other person is then feeling the vibration, which I send it to the person. Is that so, or so not the word?
I'm not
Hmm?
I'm not sure exactly what you're looking for in that
Yeah.
idea,
Well,
Corey,
yeah,
but
because
here would be my take. What happens, we've all heard people talk about, oh, I'm getting a mixed message. So I say something, wrote from my mind, I love you, but in fact, I detest the person. So on a head level, I'm resonating with my words, one thing, but on a heart level, I'm sending out a different energy. And oftentimes the underlying energy, because it has more of an emotional charge in it, has more impact than the false words. But people get that conflict.
mm, yeah, okay.
It says, yes, and if we are run by the effects, we are run by the past. Recall that removing realities from the mind is called forgiveness and is the key to taking charge of your life. Developing the skill of managing the output of your mind makes one the operator of his own mind. Have you ever done anything you did not want to do? Is it going to raise my hand on that one? Big surprise.
None of us have ever done that.
And do you know why? Why did you do something you did not want to do? You can put your replies in the chat as well. For me, sometimes I didn't even think about it. I just did it. It was a reaction.
Well, but in order to do it, that resonating energy had to play out. And you look at the word reaction. What is it? An action done on a previous occasion. It plays automatically because it's been resonated, because it's been triggered by somebody or something. And, there are all kinds of triggers as long as we're functioning out of the unconscious mind. And my take is we're not designed to have an unconscious mind. We create the unconscious mind artificially. But you just look at the person, walking down the road or driving down the road. And, there's the violent sign on a billboard, and there's another one that resonates sexuality, and there's another one that resonates food, and all of this resonance is happening at an unconscious level, and it overloads the processor, and people feel overwhelmed. When you start going in and cleaning up those unconscious dynamics, then a different world happens. And my battery's getting low here. If the computer goes out, I'll pop back in on my phone. So
Okay.
got a problem with my battery.
So the only reason we ever do anything is because we have a reality in our minds that guides us to do that particular form of behavior. A young boy whose limited realities in his mind might smash a valued antique. Is the child destructive? No, he simply does not have the realities in his mind to guide him in what we consider the proper handling of something fragile.
And sadly, that's the situation where we then interpret the child's bad disobedient. And so if we instruct them to be bad and disobedient, they will tend to play the game. No such thing as a bad child. No such thing. There are bad behaviors, and often those are genetic and then reinforced by unconscious speech in the adults around them. And that's one of the most powerful reasons for cleaning it up, to me.
Richard thought for a moment and made an insightful observation. You mean if I were told repeatedly as a result of not knowing how to handle something that I was bad and destructive, those words might build a reality in my mind? My God, that reality might actually drive me for my whole life.
Yep. Yes, that's it. And not only one's whole life, but generations of lives are driven by that dynamic. Generations.
I've never heard someone say about the unconscious, it's not meant to be that way. Because when people have spoke about the unconscious, they speak about it though that's two parts of us. We have this conscious part and this unconscious, and it's meant to be.
Well, we have three parts. We have conscious, subconscious, unconscious. My take is we're not designed to have an unconscious. We create the unconscious mind artificially by living in denial. And remember our definition of denial. When I think or speak as though something outside of me is the cause of what's moving inside of me, I'm in denial. And when I do that, what I'm saying to the mind is, don't show me this is mine. Don't show me that I'm responsible for this. Hide this away get it as far away from you as you can, and let's create a reality that it's all their fault. And so we artificially create this, what was called the veil in the ancient teachings was called the veil of the temple. The veil of the temple is the barrier between the subconscious and the unconscious mind. We are meant to have a conscious and a subconscious. And the conscious and subconscious change places all the time. You're not thinking about the color of your car right now. That was subconscious information 10 minutes ago when we spoke about it, but notice it's conscious again, and you're not thinking about the front door of your house or the color of your car. That's all conscious and subconscious, depending on the amplitude at which the stored information is firing. Information is either conscious or subconscious. But if I say to you, there's this major issue in your life, and the reason you're in this workshop today or working with this book and these tools is to work through whatever that issue is. What is that issue that you're ready to work through? Or maybe you're not ready to work through it yet, but what is that issue that's at the core of your search? And notice right now what's happening with your breath. And unless I miss my guess, you held your breath. The breath being held is the way to create this artificial barrier, this veil of the temple. It's done with the breath, and it's broken down with the breath. That's what the still point breathing process is about.
My brain's taking that in.
Say again?
So my brain's taking that in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the objective of this work is to get rid of the unconscious mind. We should be able to, just like I can resonate the color of my car or the front door of my house or my favorite food, I should be able to resonate anything in my mind at any time, unless I built a barrier against it. And when I break that barrier down and I allow myself to touch into that, I eradicate the unconscious. And if you listen to, we're so far down the road from natural human beings today. If you listen to the psychologists, they'll tell you 85, 90, as much as 95, maybe even 98% of our so-called thinking is unconscious. Not designed to be that way. But we're so far away from the beings where we're created to be. We're so far away from functioning as and out of our true human selves as love because of generations and generations and generations of denial. And so it's cleaning up the generation. Remember that story about the Jews wandering in the desert for 40 years? And they told us that it was a story about this group of people who knew all about astronomy, who were lost in a 35 square mile area for 40 years. Does that make any sense? I mean, can you get, if you know about astronomy, you know the sun rises in the east and sets in the west. And even that's a lie. It doesn't rise in the east or set in the west. The earth turns and it makes it appear that way. But if you know that, can you get lost in a 35 square mile area for 40 years? No, they aren't talking about a hot, sandy place. That's a metaphor for the unconscious mind.
So Michael will log back in. His battery's obviously gone. I'll just wait a moment. Here he comes. I'll make you the co-host again. There you go. You should be able to unmute.
And most people live in the unconscious most of their lives, never leave the desert. Most people around the age of 40, and that's why they talked about 40 years in the desert, most people kind of start to suspect, gee, they notice I've been through this 87 different times with 42 different people. And every time it's happened to me, I've been there. Maybe I'm involved in my life. Maybe this is about me. Maybe it's not about them. And then begins to search for the tools to clean it up. And if you look at, in that particular metaphor, what the resolution, what was it that got us out of the desert? What they said was the old generation had to die off. The root of the word generation is genare. It means cause. It doesn't mean everybody in old physical bodies had to physically die. It's that I have to go into my mind, become aware of the unconscious dynamics of my generations, and clean up the mess. Then I get to live a conscious life. That's what was called the promised land, the metaphor. It's not about a place with palm trees and coconuts. That's not the promised land. The promised land is a place where you get to recognize yourself as a creator and you create your life consciously as a human being. That make sense?
Yeah, totally. So if the child did not have access to the tool of forgiveness and undo that reality, chances are he would be destructive for life, buying into the beliefs that he was born bad. Of course, there is no such thing as a bad child, but many bad children are the product of parents and a culture who don't know any better nor understand their role in structuring the realities of the child's mind. Say again, sorry.
Alexa, turn off the plug.
Do you want to mute Michael?
Excuse me, my apologies.
The world would change overnight if the media comprehended this and took responsibility for the realities they pump into children and the goals they present to innocent minds. So a key thought: the mind is only capable of responding with whatever has been programmed into it. We can dismantle the realities that do not serve us by learning to forgive. Words can be used to trigger files and realities and hook them together, so to speak. How long does it take to key realities? Does it take to key realities together so they fire in concert with each other? Don't think about the purple alligator. Silly example, but if I see you in a week, a month, or a year and say, don't think about a purple, what will your mind fill the blank with? So one of the things that puts an event into a long-term memory is emotion. Repetition will drive the energy even deeper into the mind. Let's look at all too typical example. Imagine over the first decade
Can we-
or two of
Just-
life.
Just one thought, if we could, there's another little piece I'd like to plug in here. If we could
Yeah.
back up just one screen.
Yeah. Is it this one or the one before?
So when we say don't think about a purple purple, obviously what moves in the mind, the next day, if we had another workshop tomorrow, and I said don't think about a purple, obviously it would connect. It's called the Falford effect. Those energetic patterns are linked. And next week I could do the same and you'd probably come up with alligator. But let's imagine that we came back together 20 years from now. And I said, don't think about a purple. What would come to mind? It probably wouldn't be alligator. And think in terms of energy. 20 years later, the vibration that right now, I mean, anybody who's listening, if I said purple, bingo, instantly alligator is going to be there. But 20 years from now, energetically, the amplitude or the strength of that thought will have died away so deeply that you'd probably never pull it up to the surface and go, yeah, 20 years ago, I remember that workshop. Yeah, it was a purple alligator. Most people wouldn't do that. However, at a deep unconscious level, the alligator is still vibrating and will impact the ultimate output of the mind and perception. And that's why you want to go back and clean up every drama and trauma in your life, even the things you don't remember. Because until you clean them out, even though they don't come, they are not energetically resonated deeply enough to come to conscious awareness, they're still in there impacting your physiology. You say, I feel uncomfortable. I don't know what's going on here. No awareness of what it is that's going on, but there's something that is hidden at that unconscious level that the energy of it is so weak as to not be able to be pulled into perception, but it's still there impacting. And that's one of the reasons to really move through your life and notice every resonating energy that is of discomfort. Recognize discomfort is a signal of dis-ease, and you want to remove your diseases. You want to forgive them. Remember that forgiveness doesn't mean I'm going to let you off the hook because something uncomfortable is moving in me. Forgiveness means I'm going to reach inside myself and remove this energy from me. So I may choose to pardon you, let you off the hook. That's what most of the world calls forgiveness, but it's got nothing to do with forgiveness. It's a Greek idea of pardoning. That's all.
Thank you.
It's a pretty fancy alligator.
It certainly is. So one of the things that puts an event into long-term memory is emotion. Repetition will drive the energy even deeper into the mind. Let's look at an all too typical example. Imagine over the first decade or two of a life, a young boy is taught through being yelled at and punished the conflicting thought that sex is dirty and he should save it for the one he loves. Considering the file folder effect, what result would you expect to see from those links in a mind? Until he can forgive the conflicting realities in his mind, anything that resonates sexuality will trigger sex is dirty. Save it for the one you love. The resultant flow of realities will probably leave him in confusion because hooked into those files whenever they are resonated are guilt, conflict, and punishment. Do you see how why negativity and punishment can come into a marriage? What were you repeatedly yelled or told continually that was created that that has created a file folder that is causing you pain, shame, guilt, or fear that you would like to work on clearing from this day forward. So do you have a file folder similar to the boy? It may not be the exact one, but recognizing your own file folder. And just jot it down so something you bring your awareness to. So what you repeatedly yelled or told continually has created a file folder that has caused you pain, shame, guilt, or fear that you would like to work on clearing from this day forward. And remember to breathe. We admire your courage in facing these buried issues. So many of us have to be up against the wall before we are willing to confront ourselves, because we've been trained to numb our pain to the point where it takes a major crisis to break through our drugged state and get our attention. Reassuring each of you it is safe to feel what is coming up, and that facing these issues is how we heal. A key thought: the more we are able to be present of love for each other, the faster our healing proceeds. Richard expressed his relief and confided that he had not felt emotions so deeply since he was a child. His face took on a radiance as some of the sorrow it had reflected earlier ebbed away. We have become bombarded by movies, televisions, masses of people, magazines, newspaper, billboards, advertisements in stores and on taxi cabs and buses. These media continuously impale each spouse's mind with both subliminal and overt images of fear, guilt, sex, violence, hatred, drug and alcohol use and abuse. If their mind contains highly charged emotional realities connected to any of these issues, and they are continuously being resonated into activity, how sane can they be? Is it any wonder people turn to drugs or alcohol to cope? We are completely bombarded with TV, the amount of TV channels, you go outdoors and the advertisement continuously.
I think there are actually forces in the world that purposely put people into a stimulus overload, and it's a way to control people. And especially in the realm of those who want to control, in the old game, and it's not much different today, although they're different players. But kings really don't want human beings who function as human beings, because human beings function as love. And what kings want, generally speaking, is power, and in particular, other people's property. And human beings who function as love and recognize others as the same whoever they are, wherever they are in the world, will not go along with the king who says, go steal their property and turn them into a colony that we can own and run and profit from and leave them destitute. Human beings won't do that. But when you can program people with hostility and fear and the game of patriotism and, all for the king, those sorts of things become possible. And it's insane, the result of doing that and what's brought about in the lives of people who aren't really truly living as humans. So that's one of the objectives of this work, is to really restore human beings to human life.
This is overwhelming, Michael. You are describing my life and the life of almost everyone I know. I'm feeling like this is so big that we could never change it, Richard said empathetically. That sounds like the world brainwashing which says you're powerless over what is happening. You're only one person. Why don't you just give up and go along with the program? I invite you to consider that the only part you need to do is your own. You have as much power as any human being who has ever lived. You are capable of breaking through and making changes both within and without.
And you probably won't do it on your own. Most people, the time it takes, I've spent the last 50 years plus developing this work. And I feel blessed that in part by accident, in part by choice, but in part by accident, I was sort of moved by the universe into doing this work. Otherwise, I'd have never done it personally. But there was a point where I discovered that the best way to become a full-time student of this work was to become a full-time teacher of it. And so what I've worked to do is to synthesize the information, put it in a short form, so that without spending decades and decades and decades for a person to work through their own blocks, they can gather the principles of the work, the tools of the work, and shortcut the process literally by decades. That's the objective of what we're doing here.
I also feel like that. I wouldn't do this work if I actually gave it some thought. It was something I just fell into.
Divine coincidence.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It obviously resonated something within me.
Yes. Well, the fact that the book showed up in your door totally without your input, that's...
Yes.
Over the years, I've had so many people. I mean, I remember one woman who, she had done my work and, things got too hot for her and she quit. And I don't remember exactly what it was. It was 9 or 10 years later. And she said she'd gone over to get a book from the bookshelf and that my book fell out from a shelf up above and hit her in the head. And she started reading it again. And it was just like, oh my God, yeah, it's time for me to do this. So the universe definitely nudges us.
Yes.
And, when we build the brain cells, there was a woman in Birmingham, Alabama. Actually, the last time I traveled, did a workshop was back in 2019. And I traveled to Birmingham and it was a center. And there's a woman who was a part of the center that invited us to stay in her home. And when we got there, she welcomed us and said, it's so great to have you here. And, I'm looking forward to doing your work. And then she shared with us that she had totally and completely forgotten that she'd ever even heard of us. But after the center booked us to come in, and she volunteered to have us come in, she was looking on her bookshelf, and there was my book on her bookshelf. And she opened it, and she had all these notes written throughout the whole book, had no memory whatsoever that she'd ever read that book or that she even owned the book. So it's interesting the games the mind can play and what it takes to become conscious. especially if you look at this. And again, I love the pictures you come up with, especially if you look at how many people, that's exactly what's going on in most people's mind. There's so much noise. And remember, the Harvard research that we talked about earlier in the sessions, where they showed that in a time frame where 10,000 brain cells are firing, 10,000 measurable units of electrical activity are happening in the brain. And the max amount of data that goes into conscious awareness is 9 bits of data. Little tiny, tiny framework. And if you're like this guy with all this stuff going on, and you've only got this little tiny 9-bit space, life seems impossible. But when you take the tools and start to clean out the noise and start to clean out the disintegrative qualities of energy, all of a sudden, life becomes a whole different game. And that's what we're here to do, is to support people in having a life that's a different game than the one like our friend on the screen right now.
The first step in convincing people change is impossible is to persuade them that pain is normal. It is not. Due to the file folder effect, once pain is accepted in a mind, it can be hooked up to any reality in that mind through the use of words and images, and any image that pain hooks into, it distorts. The more powerful the medium delivering the message, the greater is its potential for distorting the mind's output. You've lost me. I don't even know what you are talking about. How do you change dynamics that are so deeply ingrained? Richard asked. You must look inside yourself if you want to heal. I'm suggesting we each must look at how we as human beings have created this insanity, the insanities in our world. I know it starts to look overwhelming as we dig into these issues, but overwhelm is just a stage in the healing process. Forgiveness. This tool of healing allows us to remove... Sorry, did you say something, Michael?
Nope.
Oh. This tool of healing allows us to remove distorted realities from our minds. I'm talking about dealing with all the realities we have accepted that lead to confusion. So many people are brought into the sex is dirty, save it for the one you love, and other insane lines of thinking that relationships and families seem doomed in our culture. True forgiveness of all painful realities is where our healing lies. If we refuse to do our healing work, we can be easily manipulated and controlled by anyone who knows how to push our buttons. So forgiveness, we go through, I won't do it. I can't do it. I want to do it. How do I do it? I can do it. I will do it. Yes, I did it. I know I've gone through those stages doing the worksheets. So I'm referring to having the basic skills of removing realities that do not serve us. If you are experiencing overwhelm like Richard or being triggered, it is because it has resonated all those realities inside of you during this conversation today. Notice it is a beautiful day and we are safe and secure in this online session. We even have clean air to breathe. The only difference between the beginning of this session and how and now is the realities that have been resonated in our minds. Notice nothing has changed in the world. The only thing different is what has been stirred up in your mind. You are in overwhelm only because of that. This is the beginning of some deep processing, which will probably continue for months to come. A little overwhelm is to be expected. So I think that's good to know as well, that overwhelm is to be expected when you go on this journey of true forgiveness and cleaning up those realities.
I think that's the metaphor, you know, I use so often, refer back to the scriptures, because what they were telling us was about this whole process. Unfortunately, men made them into religions. But the idea of the flood, I think that's the whole metaphor for how, when we start to do our work, it just seems like we're flooded, like we're overwhelmed with this. And it is. I mean, when you start opening the unconscious and you've only got a 9-bit space for stuff to process in, it takes time to process through and work through those things. And it is experienced as a sort of death. And so just when you know that's coming and it goes into overwhelm, you know, okay, so I slow down, I take care of myself, and I let myself be with what's moving. And you get to the point where you're able to handle more and more of the processing work. And by definition, in this work, processing means that I develop the ability to hold to the mind of love, to the space of love, when something less than love comes flooding up out of my memory bank. And when I do that, it is the active presence of love that I hold to that moves me through those unconscious dynamics and allows me to bypass the flood.
Well, the file folder effect is taking its toll on me at this moment. If a conversation such as the one we are having stirs up this much feelings, what chance does the average person have in life? Richard asked. Most people don't allow the space in their lives to look this deeply into themselves. They keep themselves drugged and on the run, with no time to feel their feelings. If hidden feelings surface during dinner, another scotch or serving a sugar-laden dessert will take care of keeping those feelings suppressed. If the drugs from the night before slow their waking process in the morning, people often jumpstart themselves with caffeine, nicotine, or sugar. This behavior is so prevalent, it is not recognized for what it is: addiction and suppression. Busyness is another of the drugs used in our culture to avoid looking at our issues.
So just a short story. Back about 10 or so years ago, we were speaking in Lansing, Michigan, and there's a town near Lansing called Ionia, Michigan. And there they have an old Civil War facility that's been turned into a prison. It's a super high security prison where they bring all of the inmates from the state of Michigan that are problem inmates, and they keep them in that one facility. Well, we were invited to go in and speak, and we did 2 weeks of workshops. I've done a lot of jails and prisons over the years. It was the first prison that I've ever gone into that the warden came and greeted me at the door and walked me through the whole process and was really there for, I want to bring these inmates something. They're inmates that are there anywhere from 25 years to life. They're locked in their cells 23 out of 24 hours. They get an hour to exercise each day. Otherwise, they're locked in their cells, unless they might have, a couple of hours work to do in the laundry or the kitchen or something like that. Also, people think that slavery was eradicated from America back a few dozen years ago. But the fact is, slavery is still quite legal in the prisons in America. Enslavement is legal, sadly. So sometimes they'll get to go and work in the laundry and they get 25 cents an hour, what have you. So anyway, we did 2 weeks of workshops. The warden attended the workshops, participated in the workshops, which was pretty awesome. And we had a teacher who lived there nearby, lived in Lansing, and they volunteered to continue with the support group. So they set up an 8-week support group for the inmates. Again, these people, they're 25 years to life. It's a men's prison. And they agreed to teach, there's a course that we created specifically for the prisons. And they agreed to teach that course to the inmates. And the course is called Laws of Living. And it's always been a tradition. What in the early days we learned was, if the inmates didn't pay for it, they didn't benefit from it. They didn't do the work, they didn't benefit. So these guys are in there for 25 years to life. Paying for a course is an impossibility. So what we did is we set it up that over the 8-week series of the support group, in order to get into the intensive that was going to follow the Laws of Living, they had to do 5 worksheets a day. So the day for the intensive comes, there are a bunch of inmates who've been in the 8-week series and they all want to participate in Laws of Living. And every one of them had the same excuse for not having the 5 worksheets a day. Guess what the excuse was? We were too busy. Every man had exactly the same excuse. They're locked in their cells by themselves 23 out of 24 hours, but they were too busy to do their work. So, if somebody says, "Oh, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it," and the next week I say, "Did you get that done?" No. And I ask them why. I know what they're going to say. "Oh, I was just so busy." Watch it. Watch how you drug yourself. If you're going to do your work, pick it up and do it. And the benefits will be monumental.
Layers of confusion will surface as you do your work, and that is desirable. As conflict and reality surface and you forgive them, new levels of clarity and empowerment will come. This will happen if you do not use your energy or drug to avoid numb out that stuff, what you don't want to see. Healing will occur. Instead, if you deal with and release the painful realities and let go of the burdens that most people suppress and keep hidden.
By the way, if you need reinforcement with these principles, when we complete each session, they're saved on Yinka's site. So Yinka's got them available. You can back over any that you miss. You can go through the whole book again. Or we also save them on our YouTube channel. If you go to YouTube and just put in Michael Rice, we've got over 200 videos there. And the book, Why Is This Happening to Me Again, is out of print. Can't sell you one, unfortunately. But if you want a copy of it, usually eBay or Amazon has used copies. The book is actually, we published it back in 1995, and enough copies got out there that it's still hanging around. So it's usually available. You can buy it for $4 or $5 on Amazon or eBay used, or there's a link there that Yinka always puts in the notes where you can go to our website, or you can just go to the website and look at, whyagain.org, and there's a picture of the book. If you click on the book and drill down, you can download it free in any one of, I think at this point we're at 9 different languages. So if you need reinforcement, it's something that, you got to build the brain cells, and they have to be able to fire strongly enough for you to be able to remember what to do with it. And I always offer that the rule that applies there is what I like to call the rule of the 3 Ps. Practice, practice, practice. You've got to use it to make it yours.
Sorry, just 1 second. I just need to open the front door to my daughter.
Sure.
1 sec.
Great. So key thought. We must reach the point where we can change our present in order to change our future. And people go, well, what the heck does that mean? Well, whatever's firing in your mind today, if it's something based in hostility or fear, if you don't ever apply change to that, if you don't ever forgive that energetic pattern, that vibration, that resonance, then at some point in the future, when you're in the same circumstances, the same old reality will resonate in you. But if today you take that, and in particular, the most important tool we teach is that reality management forgiveness worksheet. If you'll take that reality management sheet and you'll start to use it, then you will literally process out whatever the pained energies are. And once you've processed them out, the mind can't regenerate them again. Now, it doesn't mean that you just do it once. You may do a particular worksheet a dozen times before you get the energy back to the point of reasonable and sane. And you may go back and revisit that energy many times. And as you become more vital and stronger, then you'll get to reach into deeper depths of your own unconscious and your own generational patterns to clean them up. So be patient with it. So you got to change the present in order to change the future. So the present is a gift for our future. And that present, if it comes from the past, must be forgiven in order to be free from it.
The goal of this work is to empower people to become conscious of everything in their lives. People who are not conscious operators of their own minds can be programmed by others to react with any reality in response to any situation. When it comes to deciding whether or not to do your work, what else is there to do? Once you see that your whole life flows from your inner dynamics, how else can you proceed but to commit yourself and move forward?
Yay. And that picture you've got up there right now is so profoundly powerful because, go back to those ancient teachings. And the guy who's sitting on top of the brain with the reins, that was called the still small voice. And the mind, with carbon-based memory, tends to have all kinds of screaming and shouting and pain and trauma, literally a reflection of generations and generations and generations of unresolved dynamics. And that little guy sitting up on top, the energy that comes from being is subtle compared to the noise of our emotions. And it takes time to weaken the noise of those generational patterns of hostility and fear so that you can actually really truly bring in a conscious thought that shifts and starts to take the reins of your own mind. Thank you, Yinka, for all the work you put into these visuals to make the point, and that one really makes it powerfully.
I do have so much fun finding the images to watch what to put on. So I'm not teaching you anything you don't already know. It's just a matter of inner truth breaking through the layers of insane realities that have been accepted in the mind. Once you clear up the twisted ideas and clean out the corrupted files, this work becomes natural. And the best exercise I know to practice and strengthen the ability to hold space of love is to close your eyes and allow yourself to become quiet. With your awareness focused inside, think of which inspires in you the clearest, strongest, most powerful love you are capable of feeling. And breathe. That's our last slide. Yeah. So for our next chapter, 18, is clarifying love. On Thursday, the 25th of April. Does anyone have any questions before we close? You raise your hand, or you can put it in the chat. Or you can just unmute for a moment if you need to unmute. Do you want to share, Corey?
Yeah, I don't know if that is now fitting, but that is about the memory of my accident. And during hearing that all, it was like that there is a memory which is inside me, and I want to. It's connected to biking and to laces, and to I mean, Yinka, you know what is about accident, and to overcome, to clean that up, I have I don't know that there is a fear, and there is that there is something in me stored which is really for the future, not not helping me, but yeah, that makes me anxious and feeling
Does it make you anxious? Does it make you anxious, or does it make you aware of your unforgiven anxiety?
Yeah,
I'll give you a
I
hint.
mean, yeah, I understand
I'll
you
give you
mean,
a
but
hint.
that
It's
was,
the latter.
yeah. Mm-hmm.
Remember our definition of denial. When I think or speak as though something outside of me is the cause of what's moving inside of me. So when I say to my mind, this makes me anxious, I'm saying to my mind, you are not allowed to show me the root of my anxiety. I want you to show me a picture that puts my anxiety into my brain's image of whatever this situation is. And now I literally dissociate from the cause of my anxiety. And that makes the cause of my anxiety unresolvable. When I shift and step into forgiveness, then I recognize, oh, this, along with perhaps many other things, resonates or shows me my anxiety. I think I'll start to forgive as to my anxiety. Then you can start to free yourself from a lifetime of anxiety. But you can't free yourself of it if you think the cause is outside of you, because your mind will always lie to you and give you the evidence you're asking for. It'll show you that it's outside of you, and it never is.
Yeah, I understand. I put that away, that accident, that is like, it is not the accident. It's not the accident.
Well, something like that can be very mentally, emotionally, and physically traumatic. And that creates a whole other level of dissociation. And to have the courage to allow those energetic patterns to come forward with the fear and the trauma involved, it takes a lot of courage. And just be patient with yourself in doing it.
Yeah. Thank you.
Holding the space for you, dear heart.
Oh, thank you.
And I see Miss Gina's with us today. We haven't heard from you in a little while. Gina, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you for
Well, that's
calling
nice
me
to
out.
hear.
Yeah, I'm doing great. Thank you. Yes, yes.
Sweet. Well, extending love in your direction.
Needed and appreciated. Thank you.
All right.
I'm just going to play some music to play us out with, but I want to say thank you, Michael, because creating this really helped me understand the law of resonance. I've listened to stuff before and read stuff before, but I just didn't get it. But creating this was really
Cool.
helpful.
Sweet. Awesome. Well, extending love to everybody. Thanks for joining us, and create the best year yet of your eternal life. It's an awesome gift to give the world. Thank you, Yinka, for what you do.
Thank you.